Greetings. I hate to interrupt your algorithm, your dreams, your daydreams, even your routines. Sorry, that was confusing. That was a confusing way to start this analysis, but that's perfect because whatever Jay Electronica is doing right now is really confusing, at least to me. There's a lot of stuff I don't get, and not only am I okay with that, I love it. This is an unexpected great moment that has been provided for us. Yet another great moment in hip hop in 2025, where I'm sitting here and I've got these like 3 albums, or it's like 1 album and 2 EPs, or 2 albums and 1 EP, and some of it's old, but most of it's new. And I feel like I'm reading a book, and I love it. You know, I'm really into it. But then someone taps me on the shoulder and says, "Sky, you're reading the book upside down." That's how it feels to me. I feel like I'm reading hieroglyphics. So here I am, feeling like I'm reading a book upside down, and you've clicked on this video hoping for my book report. So here it is. This is my book report on a book that I don't even think I am capable of reading it right side up. You know, I have such a vastly different worldview and life experience as the artist Jay Electronica. I've been racialized differently, I have much different life experience. We have different heroes, different faith. And as I learned from this album, I think we worship a different God. It's very confusing. It's very off, but it's also extremely endearing and completely engaging. Like, I cannot stop listening. It's taken me a while. Well, first of all, it's taken me a while to drop this video because he keeps releasing albums. Apparently there's like probably going to be 16 more, so I'll just have to keep doing this. But I enjoy the confusion. I enjoy the chaoticness. I can accept the fact that there are things which not only do I not understand, but that I should not understand and that I cannot understand. But he just keeps releasing them. He keeps eating batteries. That's not to say that I'm sitting there just going like, what does this mean? You know, like I understand a lot of it, you know. There's things I get. But the more that I listen, and hopefully you're right there with me, it makes sense on sort of an intuitive level, not necessarily a rational one. Like the worldview, it all kind of doesn't snap into focus, but it seems to fall into constellations of comprehension. That's how I feel when I keep listening. It's a very religious album, and it's very dedicated to one particular branch of one religion. But I feel it actually is being more mystical. You know, mystics are people who have a sort of a very personal relationship to God. That's like the original meaning of the word mystic. It doesn't just mean strange. It literally means like you know, sort of like you think of someone maybe like living in a cave somewhere, having some kind of magical experience with God and then writing it down. That's kind of what this feels like. It's maybe a little bit more like Sufism versus the Nation of Islam. You can sort of imagine, if you ever study, you know, Sufi and his teachings, a lot of his followers have a very mystical connection to their God. They often try to have some kind of, to have a mystical experience of whirling around, a whirling dervish, until they get so dizzy that they have an almost out-of-body spiritual experience. And that's sort of what I feel like listening to this album. Like, I'm just sort of like, wow, it all kind of makes sense once I get dizzy enough. And I feel dizzy. I listen to these albums and I'm like, I love it. And Jay Electronica, I think he's one of my favorite rappers. But I'm pretty sure the rapper who has the most bars on this album is either Louis Farrakhan or this dude explaining UFOs like a week and a half ago. It feels, and this is very personal, but my dad, he died a couple years ago, and he was a very eccentric person, very bright, but also very confused. So he would make these books, these like Xeroxed books. There'd be a combination of his writing, which was often sort of a semi-drunk, high poem or something about like my mom or about birds. But then it'd be mixed in with his kind of personal philosophy, because, you know, he was a preacher, but he was also a former preacher, so it'd get like mixed in with his like philosophy, like Plato, and he did the poems of Chairman Mao, and then like a Xerox of like a advertisement for like a I don't know, of Coca-Cola, and like weird kind of pop art stuff. And then he would like just take entire chunks of like textbooks and Xerox that. He'd get all these things in like 100-page books and he'd give them to you. Now, the problem was he asked me to understand them, and I didn't understand them. But now that he's gone, I can look at them, and I can understand them in the way that I don't, in the way that there are traces of understanding. There's a constellation of understanding that's all basically dedicated to his particular strange vision of what God and existence and the human soul was. But it's really strange, and it makes you feel disoriented. And these albums, taken together, or these albums and EPs, or album and EPs, whichever it is, they have that feeling to me, where I listen to the whole thing, and if someone said, Sky, explain this. I'd be like, so there's like aliens, right? Not aliens. There's spaceships. One second. Okay. But that's how I would be. But on some level, I get it. I think it reminds me a lot of Rock Marciano, actually, in that same way. I did a review of one of his albums last year, 2 years ago, 3 years ago. Time doesn't exist. And I had a similar perspective of just like, I don't understand this man. I don't understand the way he talks or the way he thinks. And people thought I was being dismissive or worse, unintelligent. You have to reach a certain point where you can look at something and you can say, this is either brilliant or it is completely batty. But like, artists, I believe, deserve the benefit of the doubt. Because I see the creativity. I don't know if it's brilliant or batty. I'm sure it's probably a combination of both. Now, there are things I do understand. There are things where I feel like I'm reading the book the correct way. Like how to appreciate an elite MC. And many of the pop culture references. Those are things that I feel like I can get, and I'll share some of my thoughts on those. You know, what makes him such an elite MC? There's a dryness to his delivery, a matter-of-factness to his delivery. Maybe it's the religiousness of it. I don't know. Maybe it's because I always associate, and I'll talk more about this, the Nation of Islam with Public Enemy. But I'm starting to wonder, and even though Chuck D wasn't technically a member of the Nation of Islam, I would say he was the second best advertisement for the Nation of Islam, the second best spokesperson after Malcolm X, even though their relationship to that church was quite contentious. So like there's like a matter-of-factness. There's like an adultness in his voice. I don't know what it is. It's almost a resistance to fancy cadences, a resistance to hooks, a resistance to song structure. But like amazing rhyme schemes, serious but also oddly playful. He is. There's a lot of really playful stuff in this album all the way throughout, which you don't expect with a guy who, is super serious and wearing the FOI gear and all that stuff. I'm sorry, I hit the microphone. And then there's all the references. And I do think that the main block to me understanding this album is just not really understanding Nation of Islam. Now, that's not saying I am completely ignorant of their teachings. I've spent, thanks to growing up with Public Enemy, I mean, truthfully, here they are. There's the FOI on the back right there, okay? My second concert was Public Enemy with Anthrax in 1991. Farrakhan is a prophet I think you ought to listen to. What he can say to you. What you ought to do. I heard that as an 11-year-old white kid from a prosperous suburb of Boston, Massachusetts, and was like, tell me more. Who is this Farrakhan fellow? And listen, there are plenty of very, very legitimate criticisms of the Nation of Islam. But I am not going to be the guy who's going to put them forward. Not me. You go to other sources if you'd like for that. Okay? Because most of the negative narratives that have been around the Nation of Islam come from scared white people. Listen, to tell you, I thought more, when I was a kid, I didn't even know that there was a difference between the comedian Bob Hope and the Pope. I didn't understand that the Pope was a religious leader. but I was very aware of who Farrakhan was because of Public Enemy and their influence on rap and other rappers. Okay, I really thought as a teenager more about Farrakhan than any other religious leader. So I've paid attention. I've gone back. I've watched some of the things. He appeared on Donahue, a daytime TV show. I mean, really in the in the lion's den there, right? And there's this woman who comes up and says, I think the thing that scares us is that we hear violence. And this is what Farrakhan says to the nice, brave white lady who is voicing this question in a totally respectful way and expressing the fear that she feels. And Farrakhan says, speaking on behalf of Black America, not on behalf of me, we do not have a history of killing white people. White people have a history of killing us. And as I'm sitting here, spending my whole life thinking about the Nation of Islam, and listening to a lot of rhetoric from white people talking about how terrible and racist it is. Hey, white people, what has the Nation of Islam done to us? Like, personally, there's a lot of rhetoric, but I've got some dope music, really good music. I used to go to Oakland A's games. They sold bean pies. That was like the best food you can get at a baseball game. But listen, it's obviously, if you are Jewish, you feel differently about the way their rhetoric might contribute, or probably does contribute, to a lot of anti-Jewish sentiment in this country and abroad. So I'm obviously coming from a place of privilege, but I'll talk more about that here. Probably my biggest issue with this album and the Nation of Islam is that it emphasizes race so much. And I know that race is a fabrication. It's a thing. It's a thing that my people made up. Okay, my people made it up because we were in power and it was an efficient way to keep power going. So that's the one thing that really kind of bums me out, is that, like, realistically, I say it all the time to my students. Do you know how many different breeds of dogs there are? One. There's one dog. It's just dog. We've done weird sorts of genetic experiments to create different kinds of dogs, but there's just one kind of dog, just one kind of person. But again, that's easy for me to say. That's easy for me to emphasize as somebody who is from the group that invented the term and has benefited from it materially throughout the years. But anyways, that's just my little point there. I'm trying to, my channel has just been, I don't know what's going on. I don't know what's going on with YouTube, but no one likes my videos anymore. And I'm here doing a little nature of race with the Nation of Islam. So that's well done, Sky. So, like, what is this album? It's like UFOs and Rambo and magic. And it's Nation of Islam, it's Muslim, but then Jesus is all over the place. Like, why is he all over? Like, why is Jesus here? I mean, in Islam, isn't Jesus considered to be a prophet, but, like, not the Son of God, That's always my understanding, but maybe it's different in Nation of Islam, because Nation of Islam and more traditional forms of Islam are radically different. I will say I'm thankful that the album doesn't have much. I don't even know if I detect any overt anti-Jewishness in the album. But I might not see it. Again, Welcome to the Terror Dome is probably my favorite song of all time, of any genre. And I didn't even know that there were anti-Jewish sentiments in it until I was like 20. And I'd listened to it for 8 years. So, my thing is that it's all this whole constellation of this album. It's filled with a great spirituality and a fair amount of all this. But then there's this huge dose of sort of conspiracy theories, which inform a lot of the worldview. And this, please understand, I'm not sitting here as some kind of authority who's saying that people who believe in these things are stupid. I'm not. My issue is that usually conspiracy theories hurt the people that believe in them. It's not that they're wrong. That's one thing. but it hurts the people that believe in them. And I can say, as a white person, there are very real, deep conspiracies, but like they're always by the people who have the power, and historically, the people who have the power and do the violence and do the conspiracy look like me. They're not the people who look like me who killed the people who are sometimes blamed for the things. You know, we're the ones who invented racism, helped to kill Patrice Lumumba, and performed the Tuskegee Airmen experiments, right? like the Tuskegee experiment. Like that's... Anyways, sometimes I feel like fight the real enemy. Me. Not me specifically. But the album's filled with heroes. And it's funny to listen to an album where it's filled with heroes, where he is defiantly just platforming and saying how great they are. You know, number one is Louis Farrakhan, who's still alive, 92 years old. I think the best way to understand Farrakhan is to watch some of his speeches, but also do consult the page on the Southern Poverty Law Center about the things he said that are controversial. I believe it's actually a fair assessment of him. It's more weighted towards the things that are words of hate, but I think it's as far as I can tell, it is a fair assessment. But again, you feel free to tell me in the comments if you disagree. Again, it's the anti-Jewishness, which I just... As a white person who has benefited from being racialized as white, different marginalized people targeting each other, I always recognize as benefiting the real people in power. So like it's painful to me. It's painful for me to see. But also a lot of that is anti-American, which I am all for. It's good. That's probably one of the greatest gifts that I think the Nation of Islam has given the world, is a certain kind of anti-Americanism that is in and of itself very American. You know? It's a kind of resistance, a kind of mirror to the iniquities of our country that I think we really need and we ought to listen to. Good Lord, how far am I into this? 17 minutes. Woo! Michael Jackson is a big hero. You know, I believe that he did inappropriate things with children. I don't know if I believe that he did all the things that people say he did. I don't know. But I do know the words that he said from his own mouth, and those alone are enough to make me go, kind of same thing with Diddy. But at the same time, if we look at history, many times, white power structures seek to tear down black celebrities, black stars, black figures of influence through scandal, through lies. So like, if that's the basis upon which you just don't believe that these people did the things they said they do, who am I? Abracadabra is the first song on the first album I'm going to be talking about. What's it called? What's the album called? Written Testimony 3 Leaflets. So, I mean, it's just the whole nature of the album just comes through right here. You know, it's Diddy doing the intro. You taught me a lot of patience, mother effer. Now drop that ish, right? So already just starting right off the bat with the most FU guest appearance you could possibly have. Many people, not me, many people have spent a lot of time thinking about the Diddy trial. Not me. Not interested. No, thank you. But it's a strange opening. It's a strange and brave and provocative opening. And then we get some gospel going here, which is like, it's like Christian gospel. It's all talking about Jesus. And again, I'm like, I thought like he was like Muslim and the Nation of Islam. So why is Jesus all over the place? But again, these are things I don't understand, but I don't expect myself to understand. So you can explain in the comments if you want, why is Jesus all over the place? I looked it up a little bit. I guess there's like some people who believe that like, I guess that Farrakhan talks about Jesus in a way to help maybe bring people in, to make it seem less scary to people who are born Christian, because most of the people who we'd be talking to have been Christian. I don't know, but it's nice restarting gospel. It's a Conductor Williams beat, and so blessed, in this female gospel voice, thank God I'm blessed, Lord Jesus, and then a Farrakhan speech, and then we get his raps. Oh my God. Caution, I'm a fiery hot ball of various degrees of energy, and you couldn't imagine that just begin in me, and it's clear to anybody who watch me with eyes that I walk around with total disregard for the enemy. The entire trajectory of my career scream F the industry. You can't have a debate about the greats and not mention me. Abracadabra, Houdini, and David Blaine, I got nothing on gang. I came in the name of who makes earthquakes and rain. I came in the name who makes earthquakes and rain? It's beautiful. It's simple. It's put forward. F around with the F around and get your head split. My ancestors came to this land on slave ships. My enemies, though, just very, very strong opening. His matter of fact, the spirituality that's in here, the insistence on Black history as being the current moment, right? The relationship between Black history and Black current, because I teach history, right? I mean, I'm not a history teacher, but I'm teaching this class on Haiti, and I tell my students all the time, the only way to understand what's happening now is to understand history. That's why you study history. You don't understand it what happened before? You can't understand right now if you don't understand history, or if you don't engage with history, because history is not one thing. There's histories. Why he act like he got a chip on his shoulder. I got a whole effing clip on my shoulder. I got a whole effing ship on my shoulder. I got a first floor Katrina project brick on my shoulder. So, he's from New Orleans, which, if you don't know, was a human catastrophe and a natural disaster. The failure, the way that the mostly Black lower class inhabitants of New Orleans were failed by civic engineering, intentionally or unintentionally, there should not have been that much death. There should not have been that much devastation. But through the neglect of the state, of mostly Black population, that's why it was so bad. Yeah, it was a terrible hurricane. But that wasn't why. That's why he's got a right to have a chip on his shoulder that's a project brick. Again, I just keep going back to Public Enemy because, growing up with Public Enemy was really important, because it was so upsetting and confusing and good. And there's a line in the song Prophets of Rage, "You're quite hostile. I got a right to be hostile." It turns out it's a Richard Pryor quote. I didn't know that for the whole time I was listening to it as a kid. People have got a right to be hostile. And even if those people scare you, white folks like me, they got a right to be hostile. And then we get to real-life alchemy. This is where it's become clear that we are on a different planet, everybody. Hello, my name is Snorgnak. Welcome to my Snowblum. Okay, it's like we got, I think, Willy Wonka, Louis Farrakhan, Muhammad Ali, these crazy electronic sounds. Then it goes to the next song, Who Killed Michael Jackson? Featuring Quentin Miller. Nice kind of low production. Farrakhan opening up, "If you want to kill me, I can't stop you, help yourself." It's a very badass line. Cool piano up and down beat, this piano drone in the back. It actually reminded me a lot of the Pyramid song by Radiohead, which I thought was crazy. But just wait till we go later on in these albums and to think things are crazy for comparing it to Radiohead. There's a lot of these kind of theories. The Caucasian people lost 2,000 years in the Caucasus Mountains until we sent them Moses. This is the kind of history that is taught. And it's not particularly, there are factual things about it, and there are non-factual things about it. But I think the greater truth is more interesting. That the way that history has been taught has been so written by the people who have power, which means it's been mostly written by white people, white men, over the past couple centuries, that a lot of the things that we put forth, or have put forth, have been just as bunk, if not more bunk, than this idea. So, I'm not going to challenge it. Maybe that's true. And then there's this whole UFO thing. And this opening statement is like 5 minutes of a UFO thing from earlier today. So I was trying to figure it out. And at first I was like, oh, this is just a conspiracy theory. But it's not. It's tied in to a belief in the Nation of Islam that the founder is going to come back to Earth on a ship, the spinning wheel, and is going to basically be like the end times. So UFOs are proof of that. So the UFO conspiracies are proof of their religion. Now, this has not been the case forever. I looked this up. It's only been maybe 30, 40 years that UFOs, I believe, have been a part of the Nation of Islam. But again, that's the story, which I only kind of figured out. I looked it up. But even before I looked it up, I felt like I kind of understood it, you know. Is it possible that Honorable Elijah Muhammad is still physically alive? Produced by evidence featuring drama. The voice of Elijah Muhammad himself is here. The ominous strum sound, this harp, the hiss. I used to wonder where God came from. And then a whole thing about this Japanese. In 1942, there was an event where people thought it was Japanese planes, but then it turns out it wasn't, and they shot all these things, and it turns out this is the theory that it was the mother plane, which is the thing that they call the spaceship, you know, the spaceship that's going to come, and you know, look it up. It's called the Battle of Los Angeles. Again, my issue with conspiracy theories is they tend to hurt the people that make them. Sometimes they hurt other people too. Right? The anti-Jewish conspiracies hurt Jewish people as well. Okay? But usually, I don't know. Anyways. And then Dram, D-R-A-M, Shelley. Wait, is he back to Dram? No longer Shelley? That's cool. He's one of my favorite voices. He's one of my favorite artists. I think this is a perfect pairing. Jay, not Jay Electronica, Z. Could you please just take, I don't know, $500 million and give it to Jay Electronica and Dram and have them do an album together? That'd be pretty sweet. I'm going to clear my throat. I'm going to pause the recording so you don't have to hear it. And I love that Dram is singing, I can't save the world because they don't want to change the world. I'm saving myself and the folks I'm with when I cross my domain. It's great. A whole kind of weird verse from Jay Electronica, like about a woman who's like crying and she's like posting thirst traps on Instagram and about like how that's proof of the sort of satanic nature of life and how we need a savior. You know, that's where he's kind of like bumping up against some sort of weird sort of patriarchal kind of things, you know. And he talks about how Elijah Muhammad was arrested multiple times. And yeah, hey, white people, if you're sitting there and going, why is Sky white guilt? I don't have white guilt. I'm a historian. and when you study history, it's not a question of white guilt. It's a question of white acceptance of the things that have been done in our name. So it doesn't mean I feel bad that these things happen because I'm a bad person. It means I can acknowledge that these things were done in my name. Elijah Muhammad was arrested in my name, and I wasn't even born. My dad was 2 years old when Elijah Muhammad was first arrested. But it was done in my name to support the system that propped me up and ultimately led to me having this beautiful deck with the birds in the back, right? Like, that doesn't make me bad. I don't have to give away all my money and say I'm a sinner and all that stuff and I'm Satan. No, it's just history. Because history doesn't start when you want it to start. History doesn't start the day after a thing happened to you. Or the day before something happened to you. History starts at the beginning. All right. Anyways, just sometimes I get accused of white guilt. And I actually don't think white guilt really exists. I think sometimes it can. It can when it becomes a sort of narcissistic thing that some white people perform to seem, I don't know, enlightened. But that's probably better than just straight white supremacy. So, I don't know. I think we should spend less time policing white guilt. Hot takes for Professor Sky. 7-4. 10:49 a.m. on a Tuesday. Japan Airlines 1628, a nice warbled beat, and there's this like singing where he starts singing, but he actually sings kind of like Dram. It's really nice, kind of a breezy song. False rabbis, uh-oh, here it comes, and imams. Me listening to a Jay Electronica album is like me re-listening to Public Enemy albums. Just like, oh dear God, please don't hear something new and anti-Jewish. Because it hurts me. It hurts me. Anyways. Meanwhile, talking about false rabbis and imams, so false imams, false Muslim prophet, religious leaders, is mainly innovators. Meanwhile, Satan done deceived the whole world. You feel it in your icy veins. It's a cold world. Another day, another brick in the face, like old girl. More UFO stuff. Just more UFO stuff, because it's all tied into this mother plane returning. For my review of 4,400,000,000, the worst is yet to come. I'm just going to quote the spicy ass commentary from genius.com. I just found this funny, and I'm no shade to whoever it is that wrote this. I like Genius. I use them all the time. I know they get some things wrong. My niece was like, Sky, why do you get so many Taylor Swift lyrics wrong? Are you trying to rage bait? I'm like, no, I just go with what Genius says. Here's the spicy take. And I'm going to read this to you. And I think this is trying to be a backhanded insult of the music. But I also think it is unintentionally showing the chaotic beauty that this is. In 4,400,000,000, the worst is yet to come, Jay Electronica performs a single verse over an eerie instrumental in which he denies climate change, calls himself a smoother criminal in relation to Sean Combs' sex trafficking trial, and references the 2025 Jet 2 holiday meme. Approximately 68% of the song is taken up by lengthy samples, including Stevie Wonder's 1973 Soul Train appearance, a 2023 meme of an auto-tuned cat, and Nation of Islam audio clips. That's all true. That's all true, for better and worse. I don't know. I really appreciate that. I really appreciate that. I think that's right, except the way they're saying it is like it's a bad thing, whereas I think it's a good thing. I think all those chaotic things coming together, I think the provocative stances, the references again to the mother plane, the mothership that is going to destroy the white-dominated order and establish a utopia. That's where things get tricky for me, you know. I'm not sure. I think that white supremacy needs to be destroyed. But I think if supremacy is replaced by any other form of supremacy, the same mistakes will repeat. But what do I know? Anyways, a very weird beat change, and Genius did a good job. Highlander is just more Farrakhan speaking. Then let's get to the EP, which I didn't even the Power at the Rate of My Dreams. Civilian Life is Nothing. Okay, so then it's a whole quote from First Blood, the first Rambo movie starring Sylvester Stallone. You might have an image of Rambo as being like the guy with the guns, right? They sold themselves out. Rambo 1 is one of the great revolutionary movies of all time. It is an American soldier who is literally tearing down police officers like they are an alien force that needs to be eliminated. It is literally the story of how America has marginalized and oppressed somebody who it was supposed to help. It is an amazingly anti-American movie, First Blood. And so the whole speech, who are they to protest me unless you've been there and you don't know what it's all about? Who are we to protest? Who are we? By we, I mean me, white guy. Who am I to protest anything that I don't know? Elijah Muhammad or Farrakhan or Malcolm X said, unless I've been there and know what it's about. A brief reminder of history and pop culture. The movie Rambo, if you get the DVD or if you watch it on streaming, Rambo 3, it is dedicated to the strong freedom fighters of Afghanistan. When the movie came out in theaters, it was dedicated to the strong and freedom-fighting people of the Mujahideen. because the Mujahideen were our allies in the 1980s because they were fighting against the Russians. You might know who the Mujahideen turned into. Their forces, their militarized, mostly by the United States of America forces, turned into the people who ran Afghanistan and are running it now. So I have to, why am I blanking on the name? The Taliban. That was good. That was exciting. The Taliban. Rambo 3 is dedicated to the Taliban, basically. But they had to change it for the DVD release because it was after 9/11. That's history, okay? Rambo was a figure of anti-Americanness who has now been turned into a figure of Americanness. Everything gets co-opted. Props to John Boorman. Ashes to Ashes, an amazing drumless beat. There's these plucked guitars and the sample has a little foreign language to it. The soul that gave birth to my grandmother was a slave, so I refused to walk on by crying like Isaac Hayes. Shout out to Hot Buttered Soul, one of the 3 best albums of all time in my estimation. For every day I miss Salah, I intensify Zakat. The truth told from the pyramid top like Anwar Sadat. Ashes to Ashes, I took my time like molasses. When the civilization clashes, I dish out to the masses. Civilization clashes, he dishes out to the masses. It's true, it's awesome rhyming, and they took the time like molasses because he takes forever. If they ask me what's my sign, falling rocks ahead, hazardous. You got so mixed up. You're sitting there typing comments about, I don't know, maybe Farrakhan or something. Maybe you think I'm being too harsh, too easy, too lenient. Maybe you're just going on some thing about white guilt. I don't care. Meanwhile, this guy just dropped that line right there. With these civilization clashes, I diss out to the masses, which, is the thing that Public Enemy did well as well, right? Except they were actually mainstream. They managed to reach the masses. Hopefully, Jay Electronica will as well. And then we get to Wesley Muhammad and his, how long is this going? 36 minutes. Jesus, Sky. Are some of you doing the 2x thing? If you do the 2x thing, then you won't be able to understand what I'm saying right now because I'm talking too fast, like micro machines. Wesley Muhammad, did you say God of religion and compared to okay, so Wesley Muhammad, Dr. Wesley Muhammad, PhD, wrote a book called The Book of God, Encyclopedia of Proof That Black Man is God. And he is describing here that there's the God of the scriptures and the God of the philosophers. And I think that's why I worship a different God. I think I worship the God of the philosophers. I think that's who I worship. I consider myself to be a religious person, but I think he's actually helping me to understand this difference. Best wish, once again, from the top rope, unexpected, the 4th rope, comes West Side Gun. What the hell's he doing here? I don't know. He's everywhere right now on this great Hit Boy track. He's amping up his own mysteriousness. Told Lisa Marie, take these 2 grams down to Michael's. Like Lisa Marie was Michael Jackson's wife, but like Lisa Marie, the wife to Michael's, the stupid B word, smoked the cracks up, mixed Magoo with Mew Mew. I don't know what any of this means. No chorus at all, just straight into his rap, electronically speaking, my dear Watson, it's elementary, my patents of nobility is the tribe of Shabazz gentry. If you're not familiar, the tribe of Shabazz is the idea that, everybody is descendant from this, noble and wonderful tribe of Shabazz. Everybody, except for me, except for white people. It's an interesting white inferiority theology, which... Seeing how most theology has been, or much theology has been co-opted and usurped and used to serve white supremacy, I'm not, what am I supposed to say? You can't do that. I could do that for a couple centuries, but you can't do that. That I totally accept the fact that I am not descendant from the tribe of Shabazz. I don't necessarily believe in that theology, but I need to be okay and comfortable and understand that that is an experience that has been visited upon many people on earth in my name. But just the way he raps. My little piano moccasins walk through the grass gently, left, right. And then at the end, he just has these bars where he just goes, it's only one shot for me, I don't get a next life. Best wishes from yours truly. Have a blessed night. Amazing. Just amazing. I don't know. The god of philosophy is an intellectual exercise by the philosophers. Hey, that's me, totally. That's me. I think it's a good thing, but what are you going to do? Next song is called Blood Libel. Uh-oh, here we go. What is that lying on God? Oh no, here it comes. Here comes the stuff I don't want to hear. No, it's not. It's these gorgeous strings sampled and resetting. Nice little soulful sample, these little bongos in the back. And it's not really, as far as I could tell, again, it might be over my head, just like this was when I was 12 years old. It doesn't feel to be expressly anti-Jewish, you know? Libel in the courts. They tried to hang my love high up on the cross. So he's comparing love, which is another word for Diddy, Sean Combs, to Jesus on the cross and saying he's being hung on the cross like he's being lynched. And that's the reason why I don't like it. I will seriously stay all the way away from any conversation of any black celebrity on trial or anything like that. Just because the history, when you read history, you realize how often it's been falsified. Even though I personally believe he probably did the things that he's being accused of, I believe that's probably the case. I don't feel comfortable just being another brick in that particular wall. You know, and so I understand it. If you've lived your life and you've seen how it goes, and you see the pattern happening over and over and over and over and over and over and over again, and then you get people like me saying, "Yeah, but the pattern's over now." You're so backwards to think that the pattern didn't stop. It stopped. It stopped because I said so. Me, the guy who was lying to you yesterday, historically yesterday. It might have been 3 decades ago. It might have been with unequal housing, right? It might have been with redlining. That was yesterday. That was yesterday in history. That was just. So anyways, I'm uncomfortable with turning Diddy into a hero, but I'm even more uncomfortable with trying to explain why he's not and why Jay Electronica is wrong on this. Like Jigga said, to either repo your vehicle or you get hit unjustly with a RICO when ish was all good just a week ago. Slander your name on the worldwide stage with a curse like Michael Jackson that follow you to your grave. Just tying together these two amazing figures of music. Interesting. And then he drops maybe the best verse of the year. One of the best verses of the year. I used to get off the bus stops early from the crib because I was really embarrassed of where I lived. Good thing our church had a quote that was engraved in the pulpit that read, "Where there's no vision, the people will perish." So when me, my mom, and TD was pissy drunk in Paris, crying like babies, standing on the corner, singing at the top of our lungs, in Paris, I promise on God it's a memory I will cherish because I remember her crying when we looked for Uncle Charles. He's going through the whole thing of systemic inequality that leads to growing up in poverty as designed by the white supremacist superstructures that have been part of American culture since its founding. Okay, I'm not even saying I love America, but these are things that are true. All right. So talking about the fear that he feels or the shame that he feels and the embarrassment, and then fortunately because he went to the church, he had this idea that he needed to have vision, and then he ends up in Paris, which represents sort of luxury and making it in a lot of places, with his family crying and happy that he made it and he can remember it. And then because he remembers, so he's remembering being poor and ashamed, and then he's remembering seeing the sign that told him he had to have vision. And then he's remembering what happened when he followed that vision and was able to attain not just financial wealth, but some sense of stability and comfort and happiness with his family. And then right after that, I remember her crying when we looked for Uncle Charles. We don't know who Uncle Charles is. We assume that he's gone, but it's just all tied in together that he was probably taken through, I don't know, through whatever iniquities that exist in New Orleans. That's what I believe we're led to imagine. Just amazing. Just an amazing verse. I always believed, but I never thought we would flourish. I always believed, but I never thought. Jay Electronica. I never believed, but I always believed, but I never thought. You, back home, you chew on that line. I always believed, but I never thought. I always believed, but I never thought. Is that not faith? Is that not what faith is? It's believing but not thinking? I don't know. we would flourish. My grandmother taught me, wait on the Lord, don't be discouraged. Just beautiful lyrics. Just a beautiful, beautiful set of lyrics. Then Big Baby Jesus. This dude loves memes. Have you ever had a dream that when you could, that you wish, that when you could, when you wish, have, when you have, that when you could have everything? It's about the dreams from the last song. And there's like this warped Charlie Brown song. And then he does a full ODB impersonation. Old Dirty Bastard. Shimmy, shimmy, ya, shimmy, yam, shimmy, yay. And then he starts doing, you remember ODB used to be like, oh, remember that? So it's just for you ODB fans. You know, ODB, the kind of playfulness that he would have. And he's just like singing, ha, 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 ha. I swear to God, though, he's singing the melody to the song My Heart by Neil Young. Look it up. It's right there. And you think he's never going to rhyme. And then he just drops some awesome rhymes. I hate to interrupt your algorithm with dreams, daydreams, even routines. Since quarantine... Okay, this is the one line. Of all the things that he said that I disagree with, I don't feel comfortable speaking on them given our shared understanding of history. But the line, since quarantine, everyone's pretending that all that ish is good. I'm not sure about your police work. No, we are not pretending that everything is good since quarantine. I don't think we've ever recovered. And then this whole AI voice comes on, like, is Jesus alive? Is Elijah Muhammad alive? It's the same question. Should we fight? And some more talk of like a shadow government. And then there's another album, A Written Testimony, Mars, the Inhabited Planet, a whole thing with Michael Caine. With the third thing, make something to disappear, you have to bring it back. The hardest part, Mr. Wayne, is what we called prestige. Why is he doing a Michael Caine thing? I don't know. I understood the Rambo. You explain Michael Caine to me. Letter to Mars. You did what? You did what? You sampled Radiohead's King of Limbs? Universal sigh. I'm going to use a expression that I think is kind of cheesy. I didn't have that on my bingo card. Well, you know why you don't have things on your bingo card? You know why? Because you lack imagination. I didn't have it on my bingo card because I lacked imagination. The connection between Radiohead and Jay Electronica now seems pretty clear. At the time, it seemed absolutely extravagant. But it seems like this is an older song because he's talking about, for this project, I dropped Electronica. We merged both the J's. You know, I mean, you see written testimony 1 back there. Did you notice it's upside down? That was on purpose. But like, you know, this isn't the Jay-Z's not on this album, so I don't know. And apparently I read somewhere that this is a fan edit that added the Tom York vocals, but I love it. 1,000 miles per hour at the border. What is going on? I feel like I am high. What? There's like this girl rapping. What? And then at Real Candace O, Tell Us More, this kind of old school song. It's awesome, this doubled voice. I'm back outside in the name of Christ. I'm back outside in the name of spite. I'm back outside for what they done to Mike's or Complex and Rolling Stone. Better think twice. And whoever's running Apple better get my name right. I'll get Hove and his lawyers on the case tonight. And worse than that, if I see it's on site, I ain't ice, man, but I'll put your ass on ice. So this is, I guess, the do thing here. And he's just talking about like run for your life. This just awesome old school rap feel. Even like the drum beat. Man, what is that drum beat? You tell me in the comments, what is that sample? Is that the same one that PM Dawn sampled? It's a very famous drum beat. I should have looked it up, but there's too much to do with this album. And then it seems as though he's not even criticizing Candace Owens, which, like, I just cannot say this enough. Candace Owens is a very seductive voice. She's very persuasive, but she's fake. She doesn't believe anything. She doesn't believe anything she's saying. It's all just a grift. Just my suggestion. I do not afford her the grace that I afford to many other people. Just nope, just all bad. The world is phony and exposing like Candace Owens and Brigitte Macron. This is the perfect example, by the way. So Candace Owens is going after the French president's wife, that she's born a man. And she's really going into it. And she's getting sued and she's making thousands of dollars off of this. And this is all part of the conspiracy mind. This is the problem with conspiracies. The truth is, Emmanuel Macron is kind of a ghoulish business guy who just happens to be center enough right that the French have to keep voting for him in order to stay away from the absolute far right. His presence in power is a sign of a great sickness in France and therefore Europe and therefore also the entire world. Like his ability to get re-elected, despite being a business ghoul, is the problem. And she was his high school teacher. You don't have, it doesn't matter if she was born a man. First of all, it doesn't matter just because, trans rights are human rights. That's just one thing. But beyond that, it's in our face. The scandalous reality of Brigitte Macron is that she was his high school teacher. And they got married. We don't need Candace Owens to find her scandalous. Anyways. So when the scripture says, I am that I am, the first I am means that I'm present, and I'm the present tense. The second I am means I exist. I am the answer to the verb to be. That is my favorite bit of theology I've ever heard from Farrakhan. I think that's a really great explanation. Then CNN and BBC are liars. Okay, they do lie sometimes. That is true. It's true. It sucks because the burden of proof for people who you trust is 100%. The burden of proof for people who you think are lying. So like some random person on the internet or some random YouTuber, if they're lying, it's not that consequential because you expect them to lie. But BBC, as an example, it's a very reputable source most of the time. Most of the work they do is done in good faith and is correct. So that whenever they slip up, it's like a really big deal and proof to everybody that you can't believe anything. In general, it's probably a good idea. Not CNN. But BBC, I don't know. In general, it's a pretty good source for news, in general. But they still will screw up. They're still imperialist. But I guess it's about, looking in the mirror to see a savior, which is an uplifting message, right? Why not? The next song is called Remember the One Time Trump Tweaked on Zelensky in the White House? Yeah, I remember that. What are these song titles, man? I'm confused. What does that have to do with anything? Why does he quote a tweet from somebody with an AI voice that says, Jay Electronica dropped, I'm shorting the whole economy right now, 16 views. And then the whole project ends, and by the way, there might be a new Jay Electronica album that just came out while I'm talking to you right now, and I'll probably cover that too, because can you tell that I enjoy listening to this music and thinking about the themes, the challenging themes, even when I disagree with them? Anybody else know how to work the Ruby Slippers? This crazy Al Green sample, more Twitter stuff here. This ain't nothing. You should have seen my last act. I rode a one-way Greyhound ticket to the king of the NASDAQ. I blew in there like Dorothy from the Blizzard for the greener the grass at. And then the whole AI voice outro. Alhamdulillah, it's up. All produced. This one's produced by Hollywood Cole, who I just happen to be the guy who, I'm just going to say this because it's funny to me, all right? He's the primary producer. The producer of this song by Jay Electronica is the primary producer on the album The Jackman by Jack Harlow. You do with that what you will. All right. Whew, all right. How long? We're not at an hour yet. We're doing well here. I'm going to get up, hang out with my kids. This is something that I enjoy listening to because I just want to go right back to it. Like I just want to press play again and go back into this strange, confusing, challenging, sometimes wrong, sometimes deeply right, sometimes conspiratorial, sometimes potentially dangerous and hurtful, sometimes uplifting world of Xeroxes that I'm having trouble reading the right way. Until next time. Smash the like bucket. Scubs. I just swore. I've been avoiding swearing the whole video, and then I just dropped an F-bomb. So please like the bucket and smash the video, okay? Smash the video. There's the camera.